I'm still just a big kid. And anytime someone asks me to draw something, I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like I'm never not like losing my mind that I get to draw all day, every day.
Thank you for being a pal.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Pentool Pals, a friendly graphic design podcast with two graphic designers. My name is Cam with my co-host.
And I'm Cole from Cole Up Design. Thanks so much for joining us on week 9 of Pentool Pals. We got another awesome special guest this week. Cam, how'd you score this one?
Just been kind of buddies with Brooks, but we have Nowhereland Supply on the podcast today, which I'm really stoked on it. Been a big fan of his work for some time. Even have a story where a client told me to copy his work, and I said no. But yeah, no, Brooks is a good guy. We've chatted here and there over the last year or so, and yeah, I'm really stoked to have him on the podcast. So we dropped an episode last Friday, and the success on these episodes are getting more and more apparent. Like the feedback we got from John's episode was crazy good. And I feel like with Corey, now we're getting a bigger audience and we're getting more feedback from the followers. And there was a comment yesterday that Corey was this person's inspiration to get into illustration design. And I loved it. I was like all for it, and so I just want to say a big thank you to you guys for one, listening to this dumb podcast, but also, being so engaged in what we're saying. And Cole and I, we're just having the time of our life doing this. Like, this is just so much fun.
Keep being pals of the pod, and sending us your comments and your DMs about what you want to hear next from us and who you'd like to see next on the pod. So we can get this show on the road with our new guests and invite them into the chat.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brooks Engel of Nowhereland Supply. Woo!
Thanks
so much for joining us.
Appreciate the invite. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. Super stoked to have you on. I'll start by saying I tell this story often, and I guess I got the story in my head a little bit mixed up. So I tell the story of how you and I had a conversation, and I thought it was in messages, but it was on a live feed. This a client came to me with your artwork, basically saying to copy it. And I think I told you that on a live feed, and you were like, yeah, man, thanks for not ripping me off. Like, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I heard you mention that on the previous podcast. So, I know there's a lot of people out there that rip off work, so I appreciate
you were like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? I've never talked to him in my life.
Right. But hey, look, that sparked a conversation, and we did some sticker trades, and here we are.
Hell yeah. Yep. Boom.
Nice.
That's
okay.
It. Anyway, I have a designer only coffee cup. So
I dig it.
You're on there.
I just recently put all my stickers on a TV stand, because I have thousands of stickers that I collected over the years, and I needed to do something with them. So you made it on the TV stand.
Hell yeah, dude.
It'd be great to hear a bit about kind of how you got started. I feel like it's super cool hearing, everyone's personal story, and, was art something that you've always wanted to do, or was it something that you fell into later in life, or maybe you had an odd job before?
Right. Yeah, it's always an interesting question, especially listening to other designers on podcasts. I feel like a lot of people's stories are similar in many aspects, but there's always a few elements that really took you on a different route or really roundabout way to get to where you are now. But I actually, when I was younger, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. My dad played minor league baseball, so he wanted me to go all the way, and so did I. And that was my life up until I was 18, just playing, and then just realized that that's not a realistic thing. But I think in the background of all these crazy things that I always wanted to do, like I tried skateboarding, snowboarding, all these other sports that I've played. And I think the whole time art was in the background, but it was never really the focus. It was kind of like something that I was interested in, like looking at skateboard graphics or apparel or anything like that. I was always interested in it, but never really thought, oh, there's someone out there that is designing this stuff, and that's a job. I never really thought that was a thing. Like, no one really talked about it. And then I had a really cool art teacher in high school that kind of persuaded me and said that if you wanted to, she mentioned graphic design, and I don't know why, that's what stuck. I immediately was like, that's what I want to do. And I ended up going to college for graphic design at here in Colorado.
Very cool.
So, I got the formal degree, and then I realized it was very, at least at that point, a very corporate, designing logos and branding and flyers and stuff like that. And then I was like, man, I don't know if I'm really into that. I really wanted to be into illustration and painting and drawing. And so they didn't really offer courses at the school. So I watched countless hours of YouTube, finding techniques and the best products to use or the best software, and really just kind of teaching myself from there. A lot of referencing other artists' styles to kind of figure out what worked for me. And that's really what blossomed into me really finding out that apparel was what I wanted to design. And I've heard you guys say before on here that like everyone wanted to start their own clothing brand. And I'm no different, but that's been like kind of my drawing force, is making physical products that people can wear or use or keep. It's not just on your computer. I want that tactile, that physical thing for people to look at and enjoy. So right out of college, I got a job at a apparel design company. We did a lot of like church camps and youth group stuff, which really wasn't in line with me. Like, I'm not a religious person, so I didn't really get all that stuff, but like it was cool to just be designing apparel in general. But it was all really like, religion focused, and a lot of crosses and all this stuff. And so it really wasn't it didn't like portray my personal art style or my personal expression of myself, because when it comes down to it, we're all artists, and that's all we're doing is expressing whatever kind of weird shit we have going on in our mind. And that really wasn't an outlet for me to do that. So I worked there for a couple of years, and then found out that that's not the direction I want to go in. So then I worked for a resort apparel company right after that for a couple of years. So basically just doing the same exact job, just in a different industry, doing like, tourist type t-shirts, location stuff. But that's where I found my love for drawing like outdoors and landscapes and wildlife. And I think that's where I really honed in on my current style that you see. And I've just taken it from there. And then I worked there for a couple of years, learned a lot from both places. I mean, if I didn't work at those two first jobs, I wouldn't know half the stuff I know. And in 2018, after working there, I was able to go full-time freelance and start working for myself. And, I started off with a clothing brand. That's kind of like the side business still, really, but Nowhereland as a whole, I'm primarily freelance illustration, but I work heavily in the apparel industry still, designing for like local brands here in Colorado and nationwide as well. But yeah, that's kind of just a rundown. I feel like I've been talking for a long time.
No, you're fine, man.
It's always great, honestly, hearing everyone's story. Like I could hear it for days, mainly because like something so cool about Pentool Pals is that like a lot of us haven't had like another friend in the space and had that story to share with each other. And then being able to have this outlet, being able to like share our stories and talk about how we got started in the industry is always a really cool thing. But one thing that I also am super interested in is from your job at the the church apparel company, or the one following where you started doing the tourist shirts. When was the aha moment that you could do it all on your own and become really so successful in your space like you have with Nowhereland Supply?
Thanks. That's a good question. I think it's hard to know like when's the right time to start doing your own stuff, because it's it's a big risk. Obviously, money makes the world go round, and you need it to live and to just day-to-day stuff. So it's a big motivator to be like, well, I have a steady job here. Why take this risk when I can just kind of sit here and be comfortable? But I think it came down to, it still is scary. I mean, I've been doing it for 3 years now, and I never feel completely comfortable. There's always that thing in the back of your mind where it could all go away next month, and who knows what happens then. So that's a great motivation to do much work.
Yeah, my girlfriend, you know, she'll go like, why are you working so much? Like, you know, why are you at your desk from 8 a.m. to 11, 12 at night? And it's just like, because I'm fucking terrified, you know,
Right.
like I'm afraid that there's not going to be money tomorrow. And it's like, I want to work as hard as I can so that fear goes away and then there's security inside, because I think I stepped away from my day job like a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit more. And that first day, I remember that first Monday, I sat at my desk and I didn't do anything all day because I was like fucking crying, dude. Like, so, but fear can be like fear can be a good motivator, but it's like, how long are we going to do that until, like, you know, we're secure? You said you haven't had a day job in, you know, 3 years. Still, you're still scared, and you know that's so good, because like, you know, in the long run you're going to hit that like place where you're comfortable. We're not there yet, you know. We're not Dan, we're not Draplin, we're still finding our journey, dude. So
yeah, and I think like really the pivotal point while I was working the day job is, you know, doing all these designs for these other companies. And you know, I was freelancing a little bit here and there while I had the day job, and I was design after design was going to other people, and I was like, why can't I do this for myself? Or why can't I do it under my own company? And it was just like that realization that I was just tired of working for someone else. I wanted to work with someone rather than being told what to do. And I think what it comes down to is that I just hated being told what to do, when to do it. And
I think that a lot of people can relate to that one.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, even working for myself, there's still things I complain about. And to be fully transparent, like I'll have days where I just like throw a little pity party and I'm like, woe is me. You know, everything's going wrong, blah, blah, blah. But then when I really look at it, I'm like, damn, I get to do whatever I want. I'm fortunate enough to have these clients and these people that like my work, they want it, they enjoy it, and it's just like I have to really take a step back and appreciate that. But you know, it's human nature to have some type of like self-destructive nature, to be like, this.
I hate myself too.
Well, that's good.
Well, I think that part of you that, you know, feels a way that is, you know, down on yourself or whatever, is also a part of a motivation, you know. And as long as it's some sort of positive feeling of wanting to do more and become a better artist, or, you know, do better in your career or day-to-day life, whatever it really is, then I think that, you know, as long as it's a positive thing, you know, if you're complacent in your job or your career and or your like ability to create, you're not going to be growing as quickly as you would be if you're pushing yourself to do more and be better. So like there is a flip side to us being like down on ourselves sometimes, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think also like seeing the people around you and what they're doing, as far as like that second job I had doing like the tourist type apparel, there was a lead designer there, and he was an illustrator there for 15 years, super talented, taught me a lot of stuff. But we had the same position, like we were the same, like he wasn't above me, we were on the same playing field, and I was only there for 2 years. So I looked at him and I was like, is this the best that I can do at this company? After 15 years, me and you are basically equal. I'm sure he probably made more money than I did, but as far as like our ranking in the company, I was like, there's no room for me to grow here. And I guess I feel old, but I'm only 28, and I know like I just really getting started.
28, brother. Yeah.
Nice. So, it feels like I've been doing this for a long time, but
Yeah.
also comparatively to other successful brands, like they've been in it for decades. So
Yeah.
I just knew I didn't want to wait that long. I wanted to do it now. Like, what's
feel
the
you.
reason? Everyone says you have to earn your stripes, you got to do all the bullshit. And I'm like, well, why? Like,
Why?
there's no
Yeah.
reason.
Totally.
Yeah,
And I
can
feel
make
like
it perfect.
last week
Go ahead.
I said something about doing your street miles, and I think that's exactly what you did. Like at my old day job, I put in 4 years, and I kind of came to the same standstill to where I was like, can I grow here? My position went from junior designer at this like big supplement company, and my position had changed to like lead advertising designer. The pay was exactly the same, and when I realized that I was never going to get a raise at this place, I was like, I think it's time to go. I think it's time to take. I still work with them on a small level, but like I think it's time to really hone my craft, do it on my own. So I feel like we all come to that moment to where we're like, all right, do I want to stay in this position? Do I want to be here for 15 years like this other guy? Or do I want to break through the ceiling and find out what I can really, really do? And that's exactly what you did, man. And that's awesome.
I was just saying that I think that's a similar or relatable to a lot of people is that, but I think the hard part is you can realize that all you want, and you can acknowledge that I don't think that this is the company that I'm see myself working for 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to do myself, but it's like being able to take that transition to working for yourself is it's scary, it's difficult, and there's a lot of unknown. And I think it's probably harder for some people than it is for others. And it's just, I think there's a lot of people, designers, stuck in jobs that they probably don't love just because of that fact, because of the uncertainty of what's after that. What happens when you quit that job and then you're like, well, it's up to me. Like there's no salary, there's no paycheck coming unless I physically do this work. So
for sure,
I've just been super fortunate and kind of riding the lightning. I don't know
hell yeah,
where it's going.
you ride that lightning, baby.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's really good to have the reinforcement, like having you on this podcast and hearing it from other artists that it is possible, and that if someone's out there like in that day job that they may not like that much, or they don't like their boss, or they don't like this or that, or maybe they've been there for 15 years or 20 years, just like you were saying. Like I worked at Element Skateboards for a very short period of time, and they treated people really, really well there, and people were very comfortable working there for like 10, 15, 20 years. And they were also creating amazing work. They were all amazing graphic designers. Each of them could have been on their own easily, very easily. But I was young. I was really young at the time. So being able to see that it almost seemed like that was what I had to do right after college. It was like, that's what you do if you want to be a graphic designer. So then, now growing up and being able to kind of like fall into this role and push myself to be a freelance graphic designer full time and whatever, I think it's the most rewarding thing that you can do as a freelance graphic or as a graphic designer in general. Because, especially in your case, Brooks, you have like a very particular style. People are coming to you for, your work and like 100%. Want your name on their graphics. So, all really cool things. This is just like a positive forum for anyone watching and being able to relate to these scenarios.
100%. Yeah. I feel like people come to Brooks, they come to you for a Nowhereland supply graphic. It's that equity that you've built for yourself in the sense to where it's like, I don't want just some generic ass like mountain design. Like, no, I want like a Nowhereland supply. Which is,
man, it still blows my mind when someone will come to me with a project and they're using my previous designs as reference. And I'm just like, it never like doesn't amaze me that they found it, like you said, they're coming to me for this style. And I think like obviously it took me a little bit to get to that point, to that specific style where I found something that really works, that I'm happy with, and a lot of I feel like it's adaptable to a lot of brands. But man, I mean, it's just so cool. I feel like there's like this disconnect between the internet version of maybe me and my brand and like the real version of me. Because obviously, you show the polished stuff on Instagram because I don't know, that's just what I've always done. I just show the finished product, but it's like the real me is like, I'm still just a big kid. And anytime someone asks me to draw something, I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like I'm never not like losing my mind that I get to draw all day, every day. And I just like, hopefully it doesn't go away. And I'm trying my best to keep it going.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's the one thing about this podcast that makes me so happy is that, hearing that, because like with each job that I get, I'm so thankful that I get to do it. And then I hear their idea and I'm just like, I hate my life. But it's cool because like me in it, like Brooks, the way I look at you and your art, I've seen the polished, it looks like you just did it so easily. For me, looking at it, I'm like, that's got to be the hardest thing to draw ever. But it's like, it's reassuring that, you're behind the scenes and you're just like, I get to do this. This is so cool, man. Like, I love it. I love hearing that stuff.
Is that what we want?
There it is.
Fucking
Oh shit.
wow.
Oh my.
So, Corey Miller threw down some beer labels. So I figured, so this is actually one of the clients that we overlapped a little on for Platt Park. They're local here in Denver, and I actually used to live down the street from them.
Nice.
Really rad company. And anytime someone asks me about a project or someone that I work with, like this is my go-to client. It's the perfect relationship. I couldn't ask for anything better. And it's like, I want every project to be exactly like this, but most of them aren't. So I started working with them in 2019, and up until now. And they really they always give me a vague direction. They're like, here's the beers type, here's what, they're like, just run with it. And every single one of these designs, they've never made an edit. They've never asked for changes. And I'm blown away every time. Every time I send it to them, they're like, approved, good to go. Yeah. Other than maybe adding text or whatever.
Do you send them a sketch before? Or do you send them full color, ready to go on a can?
I always do sketches first.
Same.
I think that's just at least for me, the way I work, it's just a safer way to go. Because most of these take me a while to draw. So the sketch maybe take me 30 minutes where the actual design is multiple hours. So I'd rather just have to redo a sketch.
Right, of course. So you'll send them the sketch and be like, this is, the direction I want to go. And they give you the thumbs up, you go color it. Yeah. And that's how the end result is, correct?
For sure.
I was going to see if I could grab a sketch real quick, maybe.
Oh yeah. I would love to see the sketch.
I was about to say, paint me a mind picture on your sketch process, but yeah, show us.
So for sketching, I don't know why I always draw in pink. Like I love sketching in pink. I don't know
I
why.
never thought anyone else sketches in pink, but I also sketch in pink. Sorry, I just need to put that in there.
Nice. I think it's just like, it's the most contrasting to anything. Like, so if I'm like using a reference, like it just like works over anything. And then like, it's kind of, some people that I send the drawing to, they don't understand. They're like, why is it pink? And I was like, it's not going to be pink. It's just a sketch. So some people have a hard time really getting their mind wrapped around like that final. So I'll probably sketch for you.
Oh,
sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really detailed sketch, of course. Like you definitely know what you're going to be getting at the end result. And this probably helps you a ton.
So that's a sketch for this Oktoberfest can. So I do try to make them as detailed as possible so they really can grasp where it's going to go. That way, when I do get to the design stage, I'm not making a bunch of edits. And in this case, I made 0 edits, which was really cool and saved a lot of time.
Dude.
But yeah, I'll scroll down. So we've worked together on so many things, and they've been just so rad. And hopefully, I keep working with them.
Yeah,
What an
it's funny.
amazing.
I've been following you for so long that I've seen every single one of these.
But seeing
Awesome.
them all up next to each other in this
Amazing.
series of cans, like what an amazing portfolio piece. It's
Thanks. Yeah, this
just
is actually the first time I've looked at them like all side by side like this. I was just putting them all together, and I was like, dang, we've
Cool.
done a lot of projects together. And then this stuff is actually something we're currently working on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've
oh,
been
I
seeing
love
this.
it.
This is really good stuff.
So this is their uh, whatever that math is, 7-year anniversary this year. So they're doing a pint glass with this artwork on it to celebrate, and then this the design in the middle here is for t-shirt design, kind of based on that.
Yeah.
So that'll
I
release.
love that. I would say that this is like slightly different from what you normally do, but I guess it's really the same, but probably just dumbed down to 2 or 3 colors
Yeah,
versus
it's a
you know
softer
your full.
color palette than
Yeah,
what he usually does.
but
Yeah, and I
very
think
very cool.
when it comes down to like, I feel like my style does change a little bit depending on like the process that,
Mhm.
or like the production that's going to go into it. So if it's just digital, obviously I go all in full color, as but when it
Mhm.
comes to this, this is limited printing. They can only print 2 colors on the glass.
Yeah.
So I strip it down. I rely on like that heavy black line work to be most of the design, and then maybe add a hint of highlight there, here and there, because you can see the difference obviously between that and
Yeah,
then are full color digitally printed. So
for sure. But bro, you're so fucking smart with the color of the one down below with the new stuff, because you're letting the color of the beer accent and be the yellow. Because
Mhm.
in this beer glass over here, like that's so cool. It might be different, a different project, but I was just staring at that beer glass and dude, that's awesome.
That's a great point,
Yeah,
Cam.
it is kind of interesting to think, because when you think of beer, you think of kind of that color, but then also it
Mhm.
takes like a whole different life to it when there's a different type of beer, or if it's darker or lighter.
Yeah,
So you kind of have to think about that. You're like, it's not always going to be a solid background behind it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But yeah, they've been rad people to work with, and they actually gave me a free keg of beer for my wedding.
Oh hell yeah.
They're just
That's
like
amazing.
the coolest, nicest people, and I've been fortunate enough that they're here in Denver. So obviously, meeting them in person and going into the brewery and seeing everyone holding the can that I designed is,
Yeah.
Mhm.
obviously, like, I'm not going to be weird and be like, oh, I made that, but I know that.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course. It's
Oh,
that
don't we
thing
all
that
want to be like that?
exactly.
Yes,
But
deep down, I want to, but I try to refrain.
Hmm.
it's so funny. I think that that's another similarity between a lot of graphic designers where like our dream is just to go after that brewery and just nail some like beer can like
Yeah.
graphics. And you've done just like such an amazing job on this whole set. It's like from another graphic designer to another graphic designer, it's just like jealousy, a lot of jealousy.
Dude, it's
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. This was actually the first brewery beer client that I worked with.
nice.
And this has led into me working with other breweries and other projects like this. And it's just one of those things that in the moment, I didn't know where this was going to take me, but it has not only been an awesome project for them, or like with them, but it's just brought me in so much work, because
Yeah.
I feel like people need to see. I've always been an apparel designer. People always thought I can only design t-shirts. So now that people saw that I could design beer labels, then I started getting beer projects. And it was like,
Hmm.
people need to see that you can do that specific type of artwork. They just need
For
that like
sure.
little bit of validation. Yeah, so this is another one of projects that I'm super proud of. I think it gave me the opportunity to really dive in and hone in like this super detailed style.
Yeah.
So this is a company that makes hammocks, and they call them art hammocks. So they're like custom
Cool.
printed. So this first design, I started working with them in 2019, and this was the first design we did. and they just let me free reign. They're like, we love your outdoor stuff, just go for it. And so my mind, since it was such a big canvas, I think like uh the hammock's like 8 feet long. So
Damn.
I was like, man, this is a really good opportunity to dive in and do a lot of detail because this is going to be printed really big. So this is what came of that. And here's a few product shots. They were even cool enough. They put my name on the tag of the bag that they were selling.
That's amazing, dude.
Yeah, like they didn't tell me they were doing that. I bought one online and it came in the mail and I was like, oh shit, my name is on this. That's pretty crazy.
That's gotta feel
That is amazing.
crazy cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those moments where I feel like when I draw something or make something new, I have this like need to like show someone right away and like have this validation. Like usually it's my wife. I was just like, oh, look what I did. So when I got this bag in the mail, I was like, anyone that was around, I was like, look at this. It has my name's on it. It was just like, just having to, I don't know. It's like, I don't even care what they would say. I just wanted to show them. And this is one of those projects for me. So that first design sold really well. And then recently we just did 2 more designs based off of some national parks.
Cool.
So this one's for Yosemite, and they haven't printed these 2 yet. So I'm not sure when they're going to launch them. And then we did one for Zion National Park.
Oh, hell yeah.
But I mean, and again, these people were super awesome. No changes. They just let me roll with it, which is cool because it's a lot of work. And I was like, I don't really want to make changes. Yeah, it gets pretty detailed.
Wow. Yeah, that is crazy detailed.
Me and Cam have talked about in the past how like with every round of revisions that we need to do, we get a little bit less and less, what's the word? Into it. We're like we're like getting hit by a stick like in each round of revisions, and we're just like trying to get back up and get the product out of out the door. But I usually am the most proud of my first round, and like this, like I don't even know what I would say if like I threw something like this at a client and they were like, you know what, maybe we want to change like this and this. Like it would just,
I would be so heartbroken.
I would be broken in general, that'd be very difficult. So, I mean, you're lucky, you're amazing at what you do. So that way.
Thank you. Oh, I mean, there's plenty of people that ask for changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like you, it's just that obviously as an artist or creative, like I'm sensitive to that. Like, oh, if someone doesn't like it, that means I'm not good, or I'm not, they didn't like what I did. So like at first I have this like initial gut reaction of like, ah, damn, like that's a bummer. Like I get all sad boy about it. And then I'm like, well, you know what? Like they're paying me, this is for them. I need to make it what they want. And, I gotta have my, little pity party and be like, oh, they don't like my shit, all this, and then make the changes. And I'm not saying that the changes are always for the better, but as long as they're happy with it, then that's really all that it comes down to. There's plenty of projects that I've done that I don't love the end product, but they do, and I don't share those ones on Instagram, or like those ones stay digital. And
definitely.
Which is fine. It's when it comes down to it, working with someone, it's what they want it to be. So as long as they're happy, then you can't really ask for anything more.
100%.
These last 2 projects I've been very fortunate that they liked it from the jump. And I did sketches for these too. So
you had something to kind of show them, because I start with sketches too. Like I can't push myself to actually start in Illustrator unless a sketch is approved, because it's like, time is money. I don't want to waste time for something I have to kind of go back on. But before we get too far off, and this is a little bit, selfish question on my end, because I've always been, really fascinated with this. Talk to us about your color palette and how you choose, because I notice in a lot of your work, you're very meticulous in how you plan out your line work, and how, you know, the black is in the foreground, but then, or in the front, but then you like shift, you choose a color to be the middle layer of your black line work. So but yeah, it's just like, talk to us about that, because I'm fascinated by your color palette.
Yeah, so like in these specific, like there's this Instagram account I follow called Topia Tones.
Okay.
It's a
Same.
TOPIA
Yeah, they
tones.
are a spin-off of Typetopia, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's a good starting point for sure. Like it's basically just an account full of color palettes. And but then so I look at that, but then I also look at like the actual nature of where this photo is taking place. So, you know, this is in Zion. So there's a lot of like red rocks and kind of more of like this deserty landscape, but it has like some greenery in it. So I try to take it, but obviously I make that an exaggerated version of what it actually looks like, because obviously this isn't a realistic depiction of nature.
Yeah.
So, and then when you're really thinking about perspective and how like the eye sees things off in the distance, things get lighter and bluer the farther away they are. So obviously the stuff that's up front is going to be the darkest, and the farther you go back, the farther the line work is, the lighter it gets, the hazier it gets. So that's kind of the inspiration behind that. So that very far back mountain is, you know, kind of like this light blue purple color. And I guess that's just my way to force a little bit of perspective, or like an implied realism into it. I don't do that in all my designs. Obviously this one is very detailed compared to a lot of my stuff, but all my designs start out with just the line work. There's no color in it. And I use that as my guide to kind of help me separate. And I'm like, okay, if it looks good just in the line work phase, then adding color most of the time doesn't make it look worse.
Definitely. I was gonna say, I'm curious if you have a favorite project you've worked on, or like maybe even a brand that you've wanted to work for forever. I know that we talked about the beer brand, and that was something up there with you, but is there something that you're most proud of, or, you know, one of your favorites otherwise?
For sure. I would say out of not even recent projects, really just all projects that I've done outside of this beer brand label that I've done, I had the opportunity last year to design a snowboard. And that was something that even when I was a kid and in high school and in college, I was like, man, designing skateboard graphics or snowboard graphics would be so sick. But I just was never like in that industry, like the action sports, anything. Like I didn't know how to get in there. And I just, you know, super fortunate. They reached out to me just from somehow stumbling upon my work on Instagram. And they gave me the opportunity to make a snowboard and do whatever I wanted. And I was like, well, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially hearing your background too, with like being, you know, a sports fanatic. I can only imagine being able to cross the two worlds together into like your art and sports life must have been super fun.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just one of those things where like I wanted the project to be absolutely perfect, and I just got into my head and I was so just scared. And here, I'm pulling it up right now. It's might be a little tough to see because of the ratio of it.
That's awesome, dude.
So this is the top sheet, and it was I started this thing so many times. I started sketching, threw that sketch away, started again, threw it away, and I was just like, man, I don't want to fuck this up. And that, like, I think that took the longest, was to just be like, you need to just, like, you know what you're doing, just draw something. And so this is what I came up with.
It's hard flying blind, man. Like, people don't realize, like, you know, hey, do whatever you want. And while how freeing that statement is, it's also like the most stressful thing in the world, because it's like, okay, what do I want to do? Like,
yeah, that statement of like, oh, do whatever, and you're like, man, the ideas that run through your mind are endless, and you're like, well, how do your version of do whatever might be different than mine. So
Yeah, totally. So when you hear like, do your thing or do whatever, does your price go up or down? You don't have to name like actual pricing, but for me, it's like if I have to do the footwork of, making the idea and doing all that stuff, well, obviously I'm going to charge more because I'm putting more brain power into it. How does that work for you?
well, to be honest, if I am doing like an actual, either whether it's branding or apparel design, I really try to push back and have them give me some direction.
Yeah.
When they say, oh, just do whatever, I'm like, well, like I could draw a unicorn and that would be classified as whatever, but do you really want a unicorn? Probably
Yeah.
not. So you have to have, like, there's somewhere you have a vague direction. Like it doesn't have to be detailed, but if I can get like, oh, we like the desert, or we like this animal, or we like this, that's all I need. I just need a little
Yeah.
bit of spark to point me in the right direction.
For sure.
But no, there has been some people that are like, oh, we have literally no idea what we want. I don't edit the price. I'm just like, all right, we'll figure something out. Usually I'll just write
Yeah.
out the concepts. So before sketching, I'll just type out some ideas and just
Yeah.
have it in a written form. Like, oh, it'd be cool if we did this or that. And then that kind of gets the conversation started. And then it's like, people know what they want deep down. They just like don't know how to say it. So when you just start that conversation for them and you
Yep.
start saying stuff and they're like, well, I know for sure I don't want that. And that
Mhm.
kind of helps point them in the right direction when you're like, people want to say what they don't like first. Just kind of click through. I just wanted to show a little bit of different style. I just threw all this stuff together. I wasn't sure how deep we wanted to get.
The deeper,
This
the
is
better.
the-
The more work we get to see, like the more.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone loves your work, and everyone, even as an art lover, just seeing what other people are able to create is always the coolest thing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I love. I mean, I pull a lot of inspiration from other designers, other artists. So I think that is my favorite part of social media as a platform, is that you can't.
Mhm.
You have access to so many different people, and
Oh, for
meeting you
sure.
guys and seeing your work. It kind of messes with my mind a little because I see people that do such clean graphics,
Mhm.
and I'm like, damn, like one color, I'm like, damn, that looks so clean. But then I also see someone that's like full blown detail, like gnarly illustration, and I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, that's sick too. And I just like, I can't just pick like what do I like? So I
Dude,
feel like I kind
feel
of
you.
jump back and forth. Like I feel like this stuff is more of like what you would consider traditional graphic design. Some branding stuff that I've worked up for random clients over probably the last year or so.
Dude,
amazing
I've used the Wild Nomad graphic as inspiration for a project, and dude, it by far, like, that is such a beautiful little brand kit. I love it.
It's amazing to
Thank
see
you.
how versatile you are as an artist too. Like, you
Yeah.
have your own style, but I mean, you can hit everything, man. It's pretty amazing. I honestly am so drawn to that triangle badge with the bear. That thing is
Mhm.
so locked up, and the slight use of color, like at the top there, is epic.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's actually this little patch
Oh,
I did for my
epic!
own
There you
for my
go.
own personal brand. So I think like obviously designing for people is really fun, but also designing for myself is super fun, but also the
Yeah.
hardest part to
Mhm.
do
It is the hardest part.
And then it's like, you're like, man, I'm going to design this, but is it really good enough to put onto apparel or products? And
Mhm.
that's a whole nother risk and conversation in itself to
Yeah,
try
because
to.
you were kind of like, you're kind of taking out the client aspect. That's the good part about having a client, is that they can say like, oh yeah, this is good, we're going to print it on a shirt. Where when you're when you're making something for yourself, there's no one to kind of give you the validation. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. Because like
Right.
I've put out shirts that didn't sell, and that kind of really stumps you to where you're like, am I going to run into the same situation? Like, I sat on last year, I did the sink or swim tee, and I sat on that design for like 4 months because I was just like, do I want to print this? And then when I printed it, I had to reprint it. So it's like
Right.
hit or miss, man.
and you're like, you never know, because it could have gone the exact opposite way. And it's just like when you think something's rad, you're not sure if the general population is also going to agree with that. So it's just a lot of trial and error. But so there's some of that kind of graphic stuff. And again, I feel like this just derives from the fact that I love so many different styles of art, from like the super clean and simple to the gnarly detail, that like I have a hard time myself like just maintaining, which I don't think is a problem. I think it's just depending on what the client wants, I can kind of fit wherever that might be. And then
I have a hard time sticking to one style too, man. Like I want to be as well versatile as I can as an artist, and so I feel that
for sure. And I think the last thing I want to show is when I was scrolling through my Instagram, kind of putting together some projects, and I went all the way to my very first Instagram post. And this is what I pulled up. These are like my very first illustrations that I did right out of college. And it's just crazy to me to see like the different style that I was doing then. And like I still like how this came out, but I just feel like I'm a little more refined now. And this was, I mean, I graduated college in 2014, so it's been a few years. And
was this did you make this in Photoshop?
So all my work is done in Photoshop.
All of your work is done in Photoshop. Okay.
Unless, obviously logo design and stuff, I'll throw it in Illustrator. I was listening to Corey. I have a very similar like process that he does, where I use Illustrator to kind of give me like a wireframe if needed. If I need like perfect shapes and perfect borders, I use Illustrator to get me that, and then I throw that in Photoshop and draw and work on it. And then it bites me in the ass a lot of times because people are like, oh, well, we need this to be vector. I'm like, oh, well, live trace it is.
I love that.
What an awesome thing to end on, where we're able to see the beginning of Brooks and also throughout the podcast see the now.
Well,
man. I mean, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us and sharing all these works. I mean, going through them all was just super fun, and seeing now your progression as a beginning artist to now is amazing to see, and congratulations.
It really is, man.
All the success so far.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was cool to kind of take a trip and go through all this old work that I had done, and I don't know, just reminisce on some stuff, and just super crazy that I've been able to work for myself for 3 years now, and I feel like things are trending upwards, and I'm getting better, and I'm getting more projects and working with more people. So, like I said, I'm just gonna ride that lightning, and hopefully it just keeps going. And it was really cool to chat and talk about this first podcast. So appreciate the maiden voyage. Hopefully, people find some type of, they can relate to it in some way, or if they were ever interested in asking me something, this might answer some of their questions.
Hell yeah, man.
But I think more.
I'm sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to really enjoy this, getting a little bit more, getting to know you a little bit more, because you've amassed a pretty good following on Instagram. And it's like something you haven't done is do a podcast. And so I'm sure a lot of people who follow you are going to flood in and really, really enjoy this content. Side note, I'm a huge Dave Quiggle fan, and I recognize that Atmosphere hoodie right away.
I'm a huge Dave Quiggle fan. I have so many of his art prints, but Atmosphere is my favorite band.
Nice.
He does all their artwork, and it's just like a match made in heaven. I buy all the merch. It's like Dave Quiggle kills it every time.
He does, man. He's amazing. My buddy Laz used to play in a band called Leaders, and he knew Dave Quiggle, and I was just like, man, that's so cool, man. So rad. He did 2 of their album covers, and I was like, dude, you're so lucky.
The dude's crazy talented, and I think it comes down to, when I think of someone like that, just seems like not untouchable, but he's at like the height of our industry. Like he's is super talented, works with incredible people. But I think if you were to just sit down and have a conversation with him, he's not different than us. Like he's just some person getting to draw for a living. And I think that's what, when you listen to a podcast and someone talk like this, it's just, we're all the same. We're all trying to figure it out. I barely know what I'm doing. I'm just learning as I go, picking up tips from other people. Talking like this is just informative. And when it comes down to it, it's like we're all just trying to make a living making art.
Brooks, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Again, it's been a huge pleasure. I'm glad, we can actually say we're friends now after this. At least I consider you a friend. But dude, again, man, it's awesome. Thank you for being on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a good time. Some might even call us pals now.
Yes, we're pals.
There we go.